So we believe at Lightspark that in the future, any corporation that needs to move money, which means every corporation in the world, will end up using directly or indirectly Lightning and Bitcoin to net settle between suppliers or customers, and so that's why we think it's important to be here to share the progress of Lightning, to share how Bitcoin and Lightning will become the interoperability neutral settlement layer between all of the real-time payment systems that exist domestically around the world. And we think that that's why corporations should really care. What we're trying to do is kind of a step-by-step thing. So the first thing is what we have the conviction of is that we believe that Bitcoin is going to be the neutral settlement network and asset for the world. And we believe that it's the only asset that can be that because it's neutral enough in the eyes of everyone to serve as this way to interoperate domestic real-time payment systems. So, now we're going to have more adoption of FedNow in the US. In Brazil, there's Pix. In Mexico, there's Pay. In India, there's UPI. In Europe, there's SEPA. All of these systems are different, have different account formats, use different currencies, and we believe that Bitcoin can actually serve as the 24/7 always-on grid that connects all of these payment networks. And so once you believe that, you need to make Bitcoin really efficient and fast, and that's where Lightning comes in. And so what we do is we use Lightning. We made it enterprise grade and really easy to use. So we've basically abstracted the need for companies to operate a Lightning node with all of the intricacies of opening and closing channels, rebalancing and deploying liquidity, finding the best routes to route payments, split payments and multi-part payments to actually reassemble them on the other side of the network, all kinds of things that are very foreign to companies. So we're automating all of that. And enable them to have their own nodes running our software and have the keys, have the control, and we take care of the complexity for them.
Yeah, I think that's comforting to hear, I would imagine, to most people, given that Bitcoin can be a little bit intimidating to use, and then Lightning on top of that. So how exactly does that work? Actually, beforehand, we were speaking a little bit about a technology called Universal Money Address, or UMA. Could you tell us a little bit about that and just how easy it is for people to use something like that to transfer funds?
Sure. So the base use case for Lightning right now on Bitcoin, let's say between two exchanges, like we announced Coinbase going live on our stack earlier this week. So typically, if you're trying to move Bitcoin between two exchangers or between Coinbase and a wallet using Lightning, you would issue an invoice from the wallet that you want to receive the money in, and then share it with the person or yourself if you want to send to yourself, and then use that invoice to settle on Lightning in 1 second for nearly zero money. And so that's great, but the user experience is kind of a two-player mode type of thing where you have to create the invoice, share the invoice, the person has to paste it or scan the QR code, pay for that. And so there's this protocol for Lightning that already exists, this standard that's called LNURL. And so we took LNURL, which is basically a protocol that enables you to create human-readable addresses on top of Lightning, and we just added a lot of capabilities on top of it. So we added capabilities so that endpoint and sending institution and receiving institution can actually exchange FX rates. So you could send dollars to someone in Mexico who could be receiving Mexican pesos, and you're settling in Bitcoin in between, but completely invisible to users. So they could be using any currency to any currency, and then you settle on Bitcoin. Or you could just be using it as an email address for money to send and receive Bitcoin on Lightning really fast and really cheap.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, and congratulations on the announcement with Coinbase. Super exciting. I know a lot of people are waiting for them, to integrate Lightning in some fashion, and what you're doing for them is great. Any other companies you think, so like Coinbase, it obviously makes sense if people want to take their money off the exchange, using Lightning instead of doing it on the base layer, that's great. What other companies do you imagine in the future will be reaching out for a similar service? Like what would be the first, the next round of companies that you think will be looking to employ something like this?
So I think there are two types of companies. There are companies that are currently touching Bitcoin, and for which L1 fees right now with everything going on, are really sky high. Yes. So, and especially, I know you've done a lot of work in all kinds of markets that, the average purchase of Bitcoin is maybe $10 or $5. Yep. So if you're buying $5 of Bitcoin and you want to move it to another wallet, right now the fee is much greater than the purchase of Bitcoin you made.
Yep.
And so the only way to actually move that Bitcoin to an endpoint that you own or to someone else is actually Lightning in a cost-efficient and fast manner. And then, of course, block times on layer 1 are about 10 minutes.
Right.
And so if you have to wait for 10 minutes for every transaction, it just basically cuts off all kinds of different use cases. Even for trading, makes trading very inefficient if you have to move liquidity between endpoints or institutions, very slow. So Lightning makes everything faster and cheaper at a time where Bitcoin is, still as slow as ever, but even more expensive now.
Yeah.
But also very secure, and we all love that, but we're just making it faster, cheaper. So that's the one use case, and for this, it's mainly exchanges and wallets. And also some neobanks that are using and enabling their customers to buy and sell Bitcoin. And then the next level of this is actually all the clients that we're currently onboarding on the UMA standard that can actually do it directly. So, if you can touch Bitcoin as a bank or as a neobank, which is not the case in the US, but outside of the US, lots of places, then you can integrate on our stack and send and receive in any currency tapping into Lightning. And if you're a company that doesn't want to actually touch crypto or Bitcoin or any assets that is not a traditional fiat asset, then we have partnerships like with Zero Hash, for instance, that enables them to actually partner and use our stack without ever touching Bitcoin and by just sending and receiving dollars or any other currency they want.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's fair to say that your perspective when it comes to implementation is very global. I mean, there's
Yes.
a number. So you mentioned Zero Hash. I don't know if you want to mention maybe some of the other partnerships. I think earlier you mentioned something like BitNob. So you're looking at this as a global settlement layer, as you said. To go back to one point you made, people don't necessarily have to be transacting with Bitcoin. Like you said, they can be putting dollars in and getting whatever currency out. Is this challenging to do from a regulatory perspective, using this as a settlement layer, or is it fairly simple and you just sort of abide by whatever laws in whatever jurisdictions?
So part of the UMA standard includes the ability, and not everyone loves that, but that's just a reality of if you want regulated institutions to use Bitcoin
Right.
and to use Lightning,
Yep.
you have to make it compliant.
Sure, of course.
And so with UMA comes the ability for sending and receiving institutions to exchange compliance information, to abide by the travel rule, to do all of these things that are actually required for regulated institutions to use this network as a settlement layer.
Yeah.
And so we are providing all of these services to enable all kinds of new players to take advantage of an always-on, 24/7, really cheap, interoperable, open money network.
Yep.
And we believe that the only thing that can really be that is actually going to run on Bitcoin because you see it in regions. There's like really good proliferation of real-time cheap domestic payment systems. Pix in Brazil is a great example of that. And when they try to export that, it's very hard because you have national pride of your payment system.
Right.
And it's really hard to accept another country's payment system as yours. And so it'll continue. We'll see a proliferation of different standards domestically.
Yep.
And you need something that enables the interoperability to take place 24/7 real time as fast as the edges are.
Yep.
And the only thing that's neutral enough to be actually tolerated or accepted is really Bitcoin. And so then it's like, how do we make it compatible with all of these endpoints so that consumers, businesses, and any types of entities that need to move money can actually do it globally in any currency all the time, 24/7.
Yeah, amazing. Do you think, so we're here, I think this is the fourth time MicroStrategy has done this Bitcoin for Corporations conference. I spoke with Michael yesterday and I asked him, I said, do you think we're moving into an era now where Bitcoin is becoming a bit less taboo and more normalized? Do you think that is the case, and why? I'm curious.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
And I think, you look at the ETFs that were launched by very large, respected, regulated financial institutions and the success that they've had. And that makes it definitely more okay if you have BlackRock and Fidelity and the likes enabling Bitcoin services for their very, very broad customer base.
Yep.
It makes it more acceptable for companies and corporations to consider using it in all kinds of different ways because it's becoming more mainstream.
Yep, absolutely. Any final thoughts? Any message to any maybe small businesses, bigger business that are thinking of employing something like Lightspark or using Lightspark? Yeah.
So I think, to all the businesses out there, you should really pay attention to what's happening. It's still early, but I think that businesses will be able to have a competitive edge if they can move money globally in real time at any given point in time, not, be blocked by the limitations of current rails and not be able to accept or send money Friday after 5 p.m. or to another country where it's going to take days or weeks. And those businesses are going to be able to have an unbelievable competitive edge, so they should really pay attention to the space.